What's going on, everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at some PC games running on the all-new Retroid Pocket 5. Now, this isn't streaming, this is not cloud gaming. We're actually running them using an application known as Winlator. So in all actuality, we're emulating PC games here over on this Android handheld gaming device. And if you're not familiar with the new Retroid Pocket 5, basically what we've got here is a 5.5-inch OLED display coming in at 1080p. 8 gigs of RAM, Hall-based analog sticks, and it's powered by a Snapdragon 865, which definitely isn't the newest Snapdragon chip on the market, but when it comes to a handheld like this, it's actually holding its own pretty well. And of course, a question older than time itself, can it run Crysis? We're definitely going to be finding out here, but when it comes to Winlator itself, this is a really awesome application, and if you do a search online, you're going to find a bunch of different modifications for Winlator. I'm using Winlator Frost 8.1 from GitHub. I'll leave links in the description, but there's a lot of other ones out there. You might be familiar with Winlator and use something a bit different, but this is the one I've gone to for a lot of different devices, and I've had really good luck with it. Now, the first game I wanted to take a look at here was definitely the newest game on the list. Well, to tell you the truth, the game being ported over to PC is the newest game on the list, but the game itself is old, because what we're going to be running here is the new PC version of Red Dead Redemption. I will admit, on the Snapdragon 865, we're not going to be able to run this at 60 FPS, at least at the time of making this video, but I do want to show you that it is running here in Winlator. I'll just swipe over from the left-hand side, Task Manager, and if we scroll down a bit, you can see we've got that RDR EXE. I've got the frame rate up in the top left-hand corner, and if you wanted to, you could always transfer your PC saves or even your Steam saves over here. You can put them on the SD card or internal storage. And by the way, I'm running all of this from a micro SD card just to give me extra storage for these large PC games. As we know, Red Dead Redemption's been out for a long time, but the PC version is brand new. They recently ported it over. You can pick it up on Steam. And right now, up in the top left-hand corner, you can see we're not at 60. And I know it might be a bit hard to see. We're getting an average of around 34 FPS with it, and you could set this to 30 FPS and have a pretty good time, but we've also got some sound issues, and I kind of suspected this would happen with this one, just because it is newer to PC, and over time I think we might get some clear-ups. But one thing I did want to do was actually test this on a more powerful chip, Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, or even the Snapdragon 8 Elite. If you want to see a video like that, let me know in the comments below, but since we've got this Retroid Pocket 5 on the market, I wanted to show you what this thing could do while emulating PC games. And by the way, I did make a tutorial showing you how to run Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 on an Android device using Winlator, and basically you're going to apply those same steps over here for other games. But with a lot of the newer PC games to the market that do work in Winlator, the Snapdragon 865 just might not be enough for, newer AAA games to run over that 60 mark. But that doesn't mean we can't run a lot of PC games at full speed with this unit, i.e. older games like Crysis here. So the question has been answered. Yes, this thing can run Crysis, and it actually runs it way better than I thought it would. This is the original Crysis game, it's not the remastered, and I'm using the GOG version. One thing I used to do with Winlator was install the games inside of Winlator itself, but now what I've been doing is actually installing them on my PC, that way they go a lot faster. That install process isn't going to take as much time over there on an x86 platform, and then transfer that full folder over to my device. That's exactly what I did with all of the games we're going to be taking a look at in this video, and they worked out really well with Winlator Frost 8.1. I've got a few more games that I want to show off, but I'll let this play out for about 30 more seconds. By the way, we're seeing an average of around 56 FPS with this. What I'm going to do is set the Retroid Pocket 5 stationary and use an Xbox controller just to make it a bit easier on myself. Going back a bit further, Far Cry, 720p high settings. I didn't even have to change the settings, I just went into this. Up in the top left-hand corner, I do have the FPS, and we're seeing in the 70s to 80s with this one. I knew we'd see some pretty decent performance because, of course, I mean, this is a really old one, but it's still a lot of fun to play. And given that it's an x86 game being emulated in Android on a handheld device, in my opinion, just makes it that much better. I also went through and tried a bunch of other newer AAA games that I could get from GOG. Unfortunately, I did run into more issues than not with the newer stuff. But like I mentioned, there are other versions of Winlator out there that do have better compatibility than just the stock Winlator version or even the Frost 8.1. There's a bunch of them floating around, and there's some newer x86 emulators hitting the market very shortly that I wanted to show off on a more powerful chip. So keep an eye on the channel.
Notice that they have a sound enhancer and movement tracker. Dr. Krieger has fitted everyone on the island with locator signals that you can track using the binocs.
One game that I've personally been trying to get up and running in Winlator for quite some time is Skyrim. And I was trying the original Skyrim for a long time, figuring it would just work better in Winlator because it's an older version. But come to find out, Skyrim Special Edition is the way to go. And with these newer versions of Winlator, with all of the new updates and everything, I was able to get this running on the Snapdragon 865 at 720p, all low settings. And by low, I did have to turn the draw distance all the way down and everything like that. Almost at a steady 60 FPS, seeing an average of around 56. And the final one I wanted to show off here was Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 will run, but Fallout 4 on the 865 only does an average of around 42 FPS. It is playable and you could lock that down at 30 if you really wanted to, but New Vegas is definitely one of my favorite Fallout games. And right now we're at 720p medium. It's a pretty decent experience, but I did run into a weird issue. Every other time when I boot the game up and go to my Pip-Boy, the Pip-Boy is completely missing from my arm. But you can hear the menu sound, so it's definitely not without its issues. Something like that is a big issue for Fallout New Vegas, but if I booted it up a couple different times, it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. It's just a weird little bug that I ran into with the latest version of Winlator. So far with the Retroid Pocket 5, not a bad experience with Winlator, but we could definitely use a little more power. I kind of wish they would have put this out with something like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but then that price would have been on up there. I completely understand. The 865 for native Android games, GameCube emulation, PS2 emulation does work out quite well. And now we know that with this unit here, we can emulate PC games or x86 games. I've been having a pretty good time with this one, but if you're interested in seeing a more powerful device run these games or higher end games, let me know in the comments below. I've been thinking about doing a video with that 8 Gen 3. I've got a lot of games, but it does take time transferring those 50 to 100 gigabyte games over to a micro SD card. But I wouldn't mind doing a video if there's interest in it. So let me know in the comments below. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you're interested in learning a little more about the Retroid Pocket 5, I'll leave some links down below. And like always, thanks for watching.